and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. I'm Joe Jaquint, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group, and welcome to Tuesday. Yes, the Fed meeting has started. I know everybody's waiting. What will they say tomorrow? I've got some predictions. We'll get to all of that and so much more. 800-951-0592. That is the toll-free number. And, of course, if you didn't know by now, wealth insurance, it's what we do. Gold and silver, you're going to need it. They want a digital currency. Matter of fact, today, we're going to play, and you can, if you miss it all, go to allamericangold.com today. There's an interview with Bubba Horowitz. For those of you that don't know Bubba Horowitz, he's a commodities trader, a big trader on Wall Street. He's on, he makes the rounds. He's on Fox and CNBC and Kitco, and he's a guy that's changed his tune on gold quite a bit. Everyone wants him to admit about gold price manipulation. Jason, he'll never do that because he's one of them. But him, like everybody else, they all know gold and silver are going much higher, but today when we'll play Bubba Horowitz, he's like, the banker's got really big plans.
Yeah, I have not seen this video yet, so what we play today will be new to me too, and I'll listen along. But I have a feeling it's gonna sing a tune that I agree with, Joe, which is, it only takes so long before things look really, really bad before everybody runs for cover and runs to wherever they think safety is. And for a lot of people that know this stuff, they know that real things is what you put your money into, and the best way monetarily to do it is gold.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know we got a Fed meeting. It started already tomorrow. Listen, we're getting 3/4 of a basis point. And everyone's going to be worried about whether or not are they going to set the table to go to 50 basis points in the next meeting. It's kind of laughable. It's really it's an insult and a joke, really. The Fed allegedly only has two priorities. Of course, we know that that's not true. They really don't care about either one of their priorities. They just care about their precious little system. But the two priorities are really simple. Full employment, which, how does the bankers think they control employment? And then, of course, stable pricing. Well, we've got full employment and inflation's running rampant, so there really shouldn't be any letdown. But I want to give you this. If the Fed is dovish, and right now I would venture to say most people want them to be. Okay, most people want them to be. If they are dovish tomorrow, we could have one of the biggest days on Wall Street. We'll have gold prices over 1,700. Silver touched $20 this morning. Silver will be over $20 an ounce. I mean, we could see, a 2,000 point rally. Conversely, if they are just matter of fact, listen, we're staying at 75 until we see it proof. Then, Jason, we could see the exact opposite. We could see one of the worst days on Wall Street because, we've had this big rally in October, and Bubba Horowitz is going to let everybody know, listen, guys, you're just being played here for a sucker because it really doesn't matter. They've got much bigger goals, Jason.
Yeah, I think that's right, Joe. I feel like by the time we make it to the election next week, we'll pretty much be where we're at now. I think the NASDAQ and the S&P might try to rally a little more. I think the Dow's kind of where it's going to be. So if it's big tomorrow up, Joe, I think in the next couple of days it might come back a little bit. I think this is the levels they've been wanting it at ever since Biden took office. And then we're going to have these midterms, and then there's going to be a lot of finger pointing and people blaming each other for stuff that doesn't really matter when it comes to these markets, Joe. They need to look at the financial powers to know that that's where all the problems start, Joe.
Yeah, exactly. And the realities are that they've got ambitions that far surpass even what I would have been talking about. You know, I liken it back to 20 years ago. We are talking about an Amero. And when the financial crisis hit, you know, I just, you know, listen, I like to do math. I like numbers, right? I was doing them, and I'm like, that's not big enough. An Amero's not big enough. Canada, Mexico, not big enough. We need something much bigger than that. And then we talked about digital currencies and kind of was like, well, you know, the Chinese are going to have theirs, the Europeans are theirs, we'll have ours. Horowitz, Jason, is saying, hey, guys, they're looking for one currency.
Yeah, Joe, you know, it's interesting. If you watch world currencies as a whole, and you can get these charts where it shows a flow, like, you know, it piles up the different types, like the dollar and the yen. Anytime that there's less dollars, there's more yen. Or if there's less yen, there's more dollars. Of all the currencies, it's kind of been one fiat currency thing going on, Joe, in the world, because all these central banks work together. So I think what we're about to watch, to me, is not going to be very surprising to me. They're just going to call it by one name, possibly, right?
Well, yeah, you know what? All of a sudden, the collapse of the yen makes sense. The collapse of the pound makes sense. We're going to see the euro. You know, the euro is already below $1, right? All of this playing in to what Horowitz is going to be talking about. We're coming right back. When we get back, we're going to start listening to what Bubba Horowitz says, and he talks rate hikes, he talks election, and he, of course, talks the main goal. Don't touch that dial. We're back here, Patriot Radio News Hour, Joe and Jason. Yeah, I don't know. I've been battling this. I don't know if it's allergies or the change in the weather, but I've been battling this congestion all like really for almost over a week, and apparently I think it starts Thursday. It's actually going to get really cold. They're talking about snow in the high country up here, Jason. Are you guys preparing for snow up there?
I haven't seen the weather too closely about snow, but it's the last week or so it's been cold. When I'm coming to work now in the mornings before we do the show, it's in the 30s, you know, just barely above freezing. So it's gotten significantly colder in the mornings and the evenings.
Yeah, we're talking about 50s when I come to work, and that's, you know, here in Arizona, let's face it, if it gets below 80 degrees, we get the winter clothes out, we get the jeans and the long sleeve shirts and all of that. Well, get ready, buckle up, or bundle up, because apparently a big cold blast is coming. But now that we've covered the weather, tomorrow, everybody, you know, and think about what we just talked about in the last segment. We could have a record day on what I mean by record, biggest, most points up or most points down, depending on a couple of sentences from the Federal Reserve. And it's just a dog and pony show. Really, their ambitions and their goals are much, much bigger. And sometimes it's just better to hear it from somebody else, especially a guy who for decades has been part of the team, if you will, and has been changing his tune a lot, especially over the last few years. But, Jason, let's start playing Bubba Horowitz.
Okay.
Risk assets are seeing the strongest rebound since the summer in October. October was a great month for stocks and Bitcoin, and we'll be talking about whether or not this momentum can last. Joining us today is Todd Bubba Horowitz, Chief Market Strategist at BubbaTrading.com, a fan favorite of Kitco. Welcome back to the show, Todd.
David, great to be with you. Always a pleasure, and we'll go get into it. And I give you my thoughts, right or wrong.
All right. Well, right or wrong, we're here to get your thoughts, and your thoughts are always appreciated. So let's start with by talking about the markets. As I mentioned, stock markets had a nice rebound in October. The S&P 500 is up 7%. The Nasdaq's up 3%. Bitcoin, the other risk asset, is up 4.5%, and gold actually is down 1.5%, so slightly flat. So we're seeing a little bit of risk on appetite where we have been over the last 30 days. What happened? Can this continue?
Well, I think it's interesting. It's an interesting question, and I don't think we can answer it correctly yet. I mean, I will tell you that at the moment, based on my algorithms, I'm long the markets here right now. I'm not really thrilled. From a personal standpoint, I don't think it can exist. I think there's too many economic problems that we try to hide from. I think there's, the inflation is a killer. There's so many things out there that are negative to markets. It is surprising that they have rallied and been able to rally so far, but we do know that bear markets, which we are still in a bear market, create the best rallies, and this could have been or could be just a bear market rally. But one of the big problems we're seeing here, David, is a real lack of liquidity in markets, and I think a lot of that has to do with the news items coming up this week, which is FOMC jobs, and of course a week from Tuesday, the election.
Let me just, we're going to touch on all these things in just a bit, but what do you mean by there's no liquidity in the markets? What's going on?
Volume is extremely light. There is not a lot of retail participants right now. Right now you've got a lot of funds just pushing money back and forth. You see these, we call it like an accordion trade. I mean, you a rip up and a rip down. It happens so quickly, and a lot of the action happens overnight when the markets are already thin to begin with. So if you look at the volume numbers are way off from where they should be. The actual participation is way off from where it should be. And we're not seeing a real true market at work right now because of the lack of activity.
Is this because of some sort of bearish sentiment that's still persisting in the markets? Or perhaps we're seeing the beginning of, let's say, what we saw a couple of years ago with the repo market basically collapsing. We're seeing the beginnings of that?
Well, like I said, seasonality says that we could be in a position to go higher as you come into the fourth quarter. Again, I don't like the markets here, although I'm long, so I have to disclose that I am long right now, but I hate it, and I think there's a tremendous amount of room to the downside, and I think that you're going to see these markets collapse down. I think I'm looking for 50 to 70% in total when it's all said and done. And obviously, We're nowhere near that. We're about halfway there at the moment. But I think there's a lot more.
Stop it right there real quick, Jason. So here's Bubba Horowitz saying, hey, listen, we don't have real markets right now. There's no volume. There's no participation. We've had big moves, right? But Jason, that's very little money making all of these moves. And the reality is the markets underneath this really don't look good at all.
Yeah, when I say that, I think it's all rigged. When it comes to the markets in particular, it just takes some big players to move it. And if it's a couple of big giants moving it up or taking the money out and moving it down, is it really a real market? It's not. And unfortunately, Joe, we have these megalith, huge corporations that seem to move the markets all by themselves. So you can't really trust when you have this sort of rally that's going on in October.
Yeah, and again, you could have, hey, call a couple of your friends to make moves and just tell a few others, hey, sit on the sidelines for the next 5 or 10 days. And then you can short it, right? Get us through the election. You can short it later. But very, I don't think surprising comments because he talked about lack of liquidity. This is what's going to bring everything down. This is what the biggest problem is. And especially when you talk about the bond market, there's no bigger market in the world than the bond market. And we've got liquidity problems there as well. But he's got a lot more to say. Let's pick it back up.
And I think a lot of what we're seeing held up here may be being held up, in my opinion, maybe by China, Saudi Arabia, and Russia right now, as they are big benefactors of what's going on in the current administration right now.
Now, Todd, I know you've got algorithms that help you with the trades, but one has to wonder and ask you, if you're bearish in the markets, if you think a 50% to 70% decline is in order before all is said and done, why are you still long?
Well, I'm not still long. I've gotten recently long into this rally. I think what you have to understand, David, is you cannot fight the markets. You cannot fight the tape. And the irrationality sometimes behind markets doesn't mean that I could be long and I could make money, or we could reverse out and end up shorting. And I will be, when the market makes its bigger move, I'll be on the right side. I could potentially get chopped up in here being long because I don't think we're going higher, but certainly it wouldn't surprise me if we popped a little bit higher first before going lower. So there's a lot of factors that go involved. But one thing you have to learn as a trader is you can never fight the tape or fight the action of the market, because the markets can last, or as John Maynard Keynes, who I'm not a big fan of, but he did say the markets can remain irrational a lot more longer than you and I can remain solvent.
Now, okay, some would argue that the rebound that we saw last month or this past month has been more technical in nature than fundamental. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would think so. I would think it was more of a dead cat bounce or a short covering rally. You know, you get so many shorts get on board into a market and suddenly they stop going down. Well, the buyers start to come in and they force the shorts to cover, which creates the panic buy, which is more or less, I think, what we saw. And in our business, we call it a rip your face off rally.
Okay. Inflation expectations continue to fall, Todd. Is this going to ultimately bring down interest rates, which would, in effect, bring back the equities or risk on appetite for the equities?
Well, I don't see the inflation falling. I see the inflation increasing, and that would be if they would report the numbers correctly. They don't even report the numbers correctly. You know, again, the average family, other than a major emergency expense, spends most of their money on food and energy, which they give very little weight to, in, for example, the CPI. Now, oil is not coming down. It may be lower now, but it's going back up, and we are still 3 times higher than we were 2 years ago. We're still paying $4.50 to $5 a gallon. Food is ridiculously high, and that's if you can get it, because, of course, the supply chain issue is there. And then you want to talk about that there's a potentially, and I don't have facts on this, but I have innuendo or rumor, which is that there's only about a 22-day left supply of diesel fuel, which is how the trains run and the trucks run. And if you can't deliver the goods, how are we going to eat? So to me, inflation is going through the roof, and the Fed is dead set on getting this 10-year notes probably somewhere near 5 to 6% before it's all done. They'll be raising rates on Wednesday. You can bet on it.
Yeah, no, this wasn't just rumor. There were reports all over the internet. Media headlines have been talking about the diesel shortage, supposedly only 25 days left as of a few days ago. Interesting to see how that's going to be resolved. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's definitely supply-side squeezes that will keep prices up. But what about, I've heard this argument, what about on the money supply side? If you buy the argument that the increase in the money supply over the last 2 years was largely a big contributor to inflation, well, the money supply is actually on its way down. It's been shrinking. Is that going to tame inflation down the line, you think?
Absolutely not. There's no way that they can get away from inflation right now. We have been set up to fail. We have been set up to have prices go through the roof. Okay, number one, if the United States does not go back to reproducing and redrilling their own oil, then our prices are not going to come down in oil, which is 80% of the economy is based around fossil fuels, whether it be to deliver the goods or to make the goods. Because, again, all the plastic that we use in this country are made with fossil fuels. So if you do not create your own production and keep oil at $30 a barrel, then inflation is going to run away. Because do you think Saudi Arabia is going to sit back and hold off? Natural gas is becoming short everywhere but here. We've got plenty, but of course we don't want to frack it out and send it to Germany and send it to the UK. You already see the depression that they're going into, and we're going into winter now, which is even worse because wait till you see your heating bills. They're not coming down. And with the high cost of rates now, you know, farmers, and let's start from the food chain, farmers are the producers. Okay, they've got to borrow money. They don't pay the base rate that you or I might pay to borrow money. They pay over because they're considered risk assets. So the input cost to produce this food is going up. And then tied to that, a food shortage, which is here already and is going to get worse before it gets better.
I can't help but notice your poster behind you. You can have results or excuses, not both. So if you're saying that the government can't deliver the result, which is lower inflation, which is what presumably most people want, what is their excuse then, according to your poster, for allowing this to happen?
Well, my excuse is that the progressives hate America. My excuse is that they're trying to destroy the American middle class. I mean, when you look at some of the things that we have done here, okay, when you just stop drilling oil, for example, okay, and you out of nowhere, you have no plan to get the green energy, which is fine. You want to get the green energy? Great. I don't believe in it, but great. You want to get there? Tell me how you're going to get there. Fix the power grid. The power grid could not support it. You saw the story in California. Buy a Tesla on Monday, but you can't charge it till Monday night after 9 o'clock. The power grid is not set up to handle what they want. Give me a plan. In the meantime, don't break the middle class with this high inflation while you're buying oil from Saudi Arabia and draining your SPR and giving that oil to China when you have to defend your own country first and your own people first, which they have totally not done. They're looking for the Great Reset. They're looking to bring this country into to the middle class to its knees and come to a two-class system, because when you look at it, they destroyed small business. All right, you've got no competition for Walmart and Amazon. You've got no competition for Google, no competition for Facebook. So where does it end, David? That's the problem. You eliminate competition. That eliminates small business. It eliminates the appetite for capitalism and to grow further.
You said they're preparing for the Great Reset. The Great Reset of what exactly, Todd?
I think that we're having a organized central bank Federal Reserve thing to break down to come to a one currency, a digital currency, a world currency that will then give them total control of how they want to print and spend and pay the money, because there'll be no more printing. They'll push a button, but not only that, they'll be able to track every move you make from the time you're born to the time you die. And I think that this becomes a much bigger problem, because for Americans, they're destroying and taking away much of our freedom.
There you go, Joe.
There you have it. We'll be back with more of the Patriot Radio News Hour. Don't touch that dial. 800-951-0592. Gold's up 8.1650. Silver's up almost 60 cents here. 1970. The Dow is down 200 points, and the reason everything isn't higher, we had the JOLTS number. That is the company's hiring, and actually rose this month. Which, again, there's some hiring, obviously, for seasonal and stuff, but that jobs number, they didn't like that part, got the markets. The Dow was actually up several hundred points, fell on that news. But, again, you guys, this is a show. This is a show. They don't care. They've already have a plan, and they're executing the plan. Bubba Horowitz talking about, listen, that's it for the middle class. We've been saying it. This is what they want. They want to get rid of the middle class. We should be paying $30 for oil. Oil really controls everything, right? We don't realize it, but from fertilizer cost, energy cost, right? Obviously, the gasoline cost, the heating your home cost, it's in plastics. Oil's in so much, almost everything that we consume, oil and natural gas, Jason. And this is just a deliberate act. But he really said, listen, they want to get rid of the middle class. They want a two-class system. They want the uber rich and everybody else, and forget about multiple digital currencies. Jason, they just want one.
Yeah, they've been putting a system in place where they're trying to make the productivity of the middle class be non-needed, because the middle class is what produces everything. And if you can just technologically replace the middle class, and you can do other things economically to spread it out to where the middle class is not necessary, or you make a lower class where it's like a middle class with a lower standard of living, then they can do what they're doing here, Joe, which is sending all the assets to the top. So I used to use the analogy of the peanut butter jar, where you have these boom and bust cycles. Okay, at the end of a bust cycle, there ain't no peanut butter in there. But here's what happens: we get ready for a little better time. Let's say after the 2008 housing crash was over with, the money goes back in the system. The peanut butter goes in the jar from the elites that own everything. And what happens when things get a little tight and get a little tough, like where we're at now? All that big money's gone, but there's that stuff that sticks to the side. That's what the middle class has been producing. That's the gains over the last 10 years. Well, they just come in there with a big old spatula, Joe, and they just clean it out. That's what happens in these bust cycles. We're going through a tremendous one, and Joe, pretty soon you're right. They don't want the middle class. They don't want to have to depend on us actually producing and getting things. Let's face it. If you're low end, if you're depending on the government economically to pay for your food, your shelter, and everything else, you're probably not producing a whole lot. If you got a job, that helps a little bit, right, Joe? But if you're not tremendously productive, like farmers, like small businessmen that have, you have the local contractor for whatever kind of business, drywalling or air conditioning. If you're not producing something that helps society build, then you're not useful. You're not useful. And at some point, Joe, all the free money given out to people that are less useful, they're going to find themselves in a bad position. This is why you've got to try to produce, even though they're stealing 30% of it in federal income tax from you every year, Joe.
Yeah, and again, I think this is worth repeating, which is inflation's not going anywhere. We've been saying this all along. The fact of the matter is, and you heard Bubba Horowitz talk about energy. Hey, this is the plan. It doesn't matter. He went on to talk about a lot of different things like the election. Hey, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I think the Republicans are going to sweep it, but it doesn't matter because the Biden administration, the Democrats still have the power. And if you think energy prices are expensive now, he was talking about wait till next winter.
Yep. Joe, I agreed with almost everything he said. He was so spot on to how I see things. There's one thing that I think he's just not as pessimistic as I think he should be, and I think it's hard for me to I've said it a few times on the air, but he was asked the question by Lynn. He said, "Well, what about they're selling off the assets off the sheet, and they're not printing money. Isn't this shouldn't this curb the inflation?" And he had an answer that they explained why the inflation is more about real products and real things. Look, real food, real energy. They're going to have inflation because it's cost. But he doesn't really explain why. I mean, really, if the money supply is going down, yeah, prices could go up if you have a lack of things. A lack of supply for the demand. But Joe, this is where I come in. I still think they're printing money and putting it into the system. The only reason it hasn't completely blown up is they're injecting cash into this thing.
They pay the banks. They pay the banks every day.
Yes, the
they're
FOIA
paying
request.
Banks not to lend every day. So
FOIA.
don't be fooled. Now the M2 they're saying may be going down, but again, you heard it loud and clear. Because I've heard that all last week too. These are M2 is going to go down, so inflation's going to go down. No, wrong. Not happening. And again, because the things that you actually need cost so much more than what people are expecting. How about this thing about farmers? Listen, farmers borrow money and then get paid after the harvest. And essentially now with these rates where they're at, farming got even more expensive now.
Yeah, that's going to be a big problem, Joe. And I really think that on top of all of this, there's more money that's floating around than they're saying. That FOIA request, I keep going. That Glenn Beck piece, I've even had to cut. One of these days, we'll just bring it back out. But they printed $29 trillion to fix the last problem, not 5. And when they tell the world 5, and they flat out lied, and there's information saying 29, what have they been printing since 2019? I think Glenn Beck's estimation of $1 trillion a week since early 2020, Joe, that could be happening. I mean, how broken is it if let's just say it's $500 billion is being injected into the markets just to float this thing? And you wonder why inflation's not going away. Inflation's going to get really, really hot next year, Joe.
I think everybody needs to really buckle up here, get ready, understand what the goal is. This is why it really, hearing him say what he did about, hey, they want one currency, just one. They want to control everything we do. He flat out says it. I mean, listen to the whole thing of what he really has to say about how they're going to, just like we said, right? They're going to limit what it is you can buy. They're going to control what you buy. You can have freedom as long as you buy what they tell you to, right? And again, talking about green energy, and he was talking about, hey, this is so idiotic, and he brings up California saying, hey, yeah, you go out and buy a Tesla, but you can't plug it in until after 9 o'clock at night, right? And again, he goes, now what are you going to do when 29 million people got to do it? Well, now you can't plug it in to 2 o'clock in the morning, right? The math doesn't work. They want to get rid of the middle class. This is part of the goal. And controlling the money is the best way to do it. And that's why I think we've seen this run in fractional metals. When we get back, an item I don't know that I've ever run. Coming up next. 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason here, Patriot Radio News Hour. And, we're We're talking about what is coming, and all of this dog and pony show before the election here. Bubba Horowitz is like, hey, listen, just so you know, nobody's buying. There's no volume here. There's no participation. This is kind of, he doesn't say it. This is a setup, and he even I'm long because I want to make money. But yeah, get ready for what's getting ready to happen. And oh, by the way, this is what they want to happen. Because if they didn't want it to happen, we'd be drilling. We could be the largest exporter in the world of oil and natural gas. We just don't want to be, because let's face it, cheap energy really would allow for us to stay middle class, and that's not the goal. Listen, that is not the goal. They want a one world currency. Now, they may pretend, oh well, the China's got theirs, we've got ours, Europe's got theirs, but really underneath it all, it's one. And very simply put, they're going to be like, hey, here's some credits. Don't worry, we're going to give you credits. We'll give you some credits. Here's 500 credits, but you can only buy food with these 500 credits. Matter of fact, hey, here's 1,000 credits, but that's just for your energy. Here's some credits for this or that. They're going to tell you what types of guns you can buy, if any guns at all, the ammo you can buy, the amount of oil. Listen, not only are they going to tell you what to buy, they're going to tell you how much you can buy. And that's it. And then if you can't afford you went over your limit tax, if you will, yeah, you're not getting it. And I think, Jason, this is why we're seeing everyone flood in to the fractional gold and silver markets. As you know, we've been telling everything's so hard to get. We're down to about the last 50 of those 10th ounce from yesterday. So that this is probably the final day here, $240. That is the last of it. And again, until some wholesaler out of nowhere pops up. But again, usually when it pops up, it's a day or two if you want to take advantage of a 10th ounce American Gold Eagle, $240. But today, Jason, I've got 5,000 Ike uncirculated silver dollars. These are 40% silver dollars, 1971, 72, 73, 74. They're all San Francisco mint. These things are like brand spanking new. The wholesaler was telling me most of these would grade out like mint state 63s. But Jason, we're just trying to find anything that's affordable. They're going to be rolls of 20. So I've got 250 rolls of these Ike dollars, rolls of 20, and they're $285 a roll for 20 of the Ike silver dollars. And again, these are 40% silver, Jason.
I don't have my book in front of me, so it's been a while since I looked at these. How much silver is in one of these coins?
So right now you got about $6.50 of meltable silver in each of these coins. And again, we know about silver premiums and how outrageous they are. But the nice part is these things are unlike your silver half dollars, as an example. You don't think about silver half dollars right now. I mean, you're talking about paying almost $39 an ounce on silver half dollars. I mean, silver eagles, you're like at $40 an ounce. So price per ounce wise, they're in that range of probably more like the quarters and the dimes here at $285 a roll.
Yeah, so I've seen these. These are pretty cool coins. There is a 40% silver half dollars that we've run, I think, once or twice since I've been here. Same sort of thing, except for this is the dollar coin, so it's got twice as much silver in it. And I don't think they circulated these, Joe, these silver ones. So these are going to be something that was pulled out of sets.
Yeah, all of these are uncirculated. They've never made it out into the public, and just something neat, different. And again, here's the thing: everybody, especially when we get to this, everyone's going to know the value. They may not know it all today, but believe me, when it comes to bartering, because this is what's going to happen, everyone will be understand the value of a 40% silver coin.
Yep, and it's a big dollar too. I think it's the same size as the Morgan dollars. I think it's the same diameter.
Yeah, it's a big coin. It's a big coin. It's like just like any other silver dollar that you've seen. The only difference is these ones have silver in it.
That's correct. So yeah, this is a cool one to jump in on, Joe, and of course very affordable if you're one of those guys that can't afford a roll of Silver Eagles. Your budget's a little smaller. This price point, Joe, to get a full roll of silver coins is really good. And if you just want something different, if you've been buying a lot of silver out there and you want cheap silver and something a little different, this is right up your alley, man. And you can buy 1,000. That's a lot of rolls, Joe.
Well, we got 250 rolls available at 800-951-0592. And just start putting them away, and we'll just see what happens here as we watch for tomorrow. I anticipate my personal. If you put a gun to my head and said, Joe, which way is it going? I kind of think they're gonna wuss out. That's my opinion. I don't know. They shouldn't. Which makes me believe that they will, because they never listen to me. Obviously, inflation isn't going anywhere, but we'll wait and see. 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back after the break. 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason, kind of a new item here for us, and it may be an item we'll do more of in the future, especially with the inability to get large quantities of silver of any kind. And it doesn't matter if it's Silver Eagles, silver half dollars, quarters, dimes, silver rounds. I mean, right, Jason?
You never sold war nickels. I've never heard of silver war nickels, Joe. I've never heard
that may be next, right?
35% silver, Joe. They're about the same as these.
Yeah, what is that, like 1937 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
I think something like that on the war nickel. I don't know. We're not there yet, but these are the Ike silver dollars, $285. You get 20 in a roll. And again, I think it's going to be about quantity here, especially how many pieces. How many pieces of silver do I have? And like Jason said, hey, I can't afford, you got rolls of Silver Eagles now back to $800.
Yeah,
I can get, it's not the same amount of silver, but I can get 40 silver coins for $285.
Yeah, Joe, these are really good if you can get a bunch of them, man. It's really, when it comes to these items that are a little not as normal as like what you say, quarters, halves, and dimes. But if you can stock up a lot of these, it puts you in a stronger position when it comes to selling them too. So if you're somebody that just wants a little bit of something, some silver that's cheap, that's a good way to buy it. And also, it's really good if you want to stock up, because when you, especially in the condition that you're saying these are in, it's really good to get like a half bag of these, which would be like $500 face value, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. 800-951-0592. If you wanted to pick up a half bag, that's 500 of them. You'd be looking at $7,125. A full bag. You want to buy 1,000? Like I said, I've got 5,000 of them. A full bag, $14,250 right now at 800-951-0592. A full bag of half dollars. Jason, you're looking at over $27,000 for a full bag of halves.
That's right. That's why it's simply just the content of the silver in the coins. But these are cool, Joe. I'd have to admit this would be a good one to jump on if you haven't bought any of these before, especially since I know what these look like. These have been pulled. These were probably in sets or in as a collector's thing, because the normal Eisenhower dollar was circulated. It was copper nickel. It was not silver. So the ones if you ever see them at the bank and I should grab those up. Well, if you had it's the copper sandwich. It's not.
Those are copper. Yeah.
These are ones that were actually they never put these in circulation. They never spent these. This was just for collectors to have a silver dollar. They wanted to call them silver dollars, but they didn't want to make silver dollars, so they lowered the silver content and put them out for collectors, and that's what we have, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely right. And that's kind of what makes it unique. This was always intended to be a collectible from the mint. They didn't put these in circulation. I know, and a lot of you out there are like, I've got these Ike silver dollars. I've seen them before. The chances are, as Jason said, they're just the clad. They're just the copper ones. These never made it out into the general public. So these things, like I said, when we were asking, hey, what do these look like? Are they new? He's like, yeah, these are, you're talking like Mint State 63 type quality here. $285 a roll, 800-951-0592.